I was not related to wine up to my 29 years of age. I didn't drink wine, although my great-grandparents were sherry producers. But my grandparents already had lost the winery, so my parents even less, and I never drank wine at home, in spite of this background of producers in sherry where I was born. But at 29, I began to be interested in wine, and little by little, I ended up changing even my profession to wine. And then I started directing the Consejo Regulador de Ribera del Duero for 6 years. There I met Mariano Garcia, who was at the time Vega Sicilia's winemaker. And I fulfilled my dream of being able to be part of a winery, of an own winery, by teaming up with him. And we started Aalto in 1999. We started carefully, and we didn't want to develop the company in the very first day with a new winery, etc. We decided to go little by little. In 2005, we saw 6 years after the business was going well, obviously, with Mariano on the rudder. We decided to build a new winery, although this winery was only built technically to make sure that we didn't spend money in nothing but the quality of the wine. And then finally now in 2016, we are able to complete all the rest of the winery, mean offices and gardens, etc., and finally have what we had in mind when we started. Well, first of all, I have to tell you that, well, obviously it's Tempranillo, but I have to tell you that Mariano Garcia is the one that should be here in front of the wine. As you know, he's one of the best enologists in Spain, in my opinion, one of the best enologists in the world. 30 years at the Vega Sicilia's Ferrari without making a single mistake in any bend. Tell what type of a super wine man he is. In fact, he was born at Vega Sicilia, at the vineyard, at the estate. Sorry. His father was working there as the man in charge of the vineyards, and they lived there. Mariano was born there, and ever since he was a child, unlike me, he was among vineyards, among wines, etc. In fact, he was thinking of not dedicating his professional life to wine when the director of Vega Sicilia, Jesus Anadon, told this guy, tastes very well, he has to study enology, and he did against his initial idea. So he is the one who should be here in front of the glass, because he never refuses a blind tasting. Actually, I've seen him sometimes understand the wine blind tasted unbelievably well. It's not my professional, it's management, but I'm delighted to go ahead. First thing I thought when I smelled it is a Tempranillo, which, by the way, is probably quite obvious. You wouldn't bring here a Grand Hermitage for me to taste. So, so it tastes very much like Tempranillo, and it smells, and in my opinion, it smells like Ribera del Duero. So Tempranillo and Ribera del Duero, I would say, why would you bring an Allion to me, or Viña Sastre, or so this has to be Aalto. Actually, in fact, it brings many bells in me. You know, the problem with winemakers, I'm not a winemaker, with wine owners, is that you taste your wine so often that you ended up first liking it more than you should. And second, considering this is the pattern, and then anything you taste, you compare with that, and if it differs, you may think is less good, which is not at all. Maybe it differs because it is better. But once you make this pattern in your mind, what fits there is considered. I hope it's not my case. I try to drink as many wines as possible from many different wineries and from many different countries. But obviously, when you see something that inside rings a bell, you think is yours. I think it is an Aalto. There again, blind tasting is the most humble thing ever. It could have been imagined that this is a Chateau Lafite, to give you an example. I would be off the grape, the region, everything. But it tastes to me, it smells, I have only smelled it, but in me it smells home. In the mouth, I even think it's the same idea. It is obviously an older vintage. This is not something recent. I would say this is older than 2005. It's a very rich wine. I see a lot of tannin, not too much acidity, but it's typical of our region, because unfortunately, Ribera del Duero has, I was going to say a problem, maybe it's not a problem, but we have a rather higher pH than we would like. This is the Tempranillo, which tends to give high pH, and as well the region, but mostly because for many, many years, the viticulture, and we have to understand, not criticize them, they've been adding fertilizers to the vineyards, because of course if they were paid very little for their grapes, for the cooperative, etc., what would they do? Produce a lot. It's obvious. And no one was telling them, oh, you're producing. There wasn't even Ribera del Duero up to 25 years ago. There was no region as such. Of course, wine has been made here for the last 2,000 years, but it was not Ribera del Duero in the Roman times. So I don't criticize them for fertilizing, but this even increases the pH, and the hot summers gives us a lower natural acidity. I think acidity is fine in this wine, although it's not particularly high. I think it's very well balanced. I would say it's not, could be 2004, in my opinion. 2004 was a great year. Very, very, very complex. It's keeping very well. So, as I said, it's older than 2005, it says 2004. Could be 2003 as well, because of the heat. We had extreme heat in that summer, and it tends to give very robust wines, and this is a robust wine. But somehow I find it more elegant than what 2003 would give, because we had, I don't know if you remember, in 2003 was a year where in France, many elderly people died because of the heat wave. Well, in France, I guess in Spain as well, but it was in the news, was in France. Here in Spain, we had tremendous scorching summer, and always ends up in the wine. But in my opinion, 2003 is corpulent, as this one is, doesn't last as long as well as 4 or 5. So between 3 and 4, I would say 4. Certainly not 2002. It was one of the, in my opinion, weakest years of Aalto, or Ribera del Duero, and therefore Aalto. We didn't make PS 2002. And 2001 or 2000, I think they would be more evolved than this wine. If this is 1 or 2000, which could be, I would say, wow, it's keeping extremely well, the wine. And I would not go for 1999, because 1999 was our first year. We made wine in that year for the first time. We couldn't control the vineyards. We just bought, the only year we went to the market to buy grapes, and in the end, the wine was not up to the standard we expected. For me, the story of Aalto starts in 2000. It was a year where we had already controlled the vineyards throughout the year, and we harvested ourselves. Therefore, my guess would be it is a 2004. Now, whether it's Aalto or PS is another point. Actually, would be halfway between one or another. Surprisingly, of course, it's blind taste. I may be completely off, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be worried about it. But surprisingly, I would go for Aalto more than PS. I wouldn't think that this is a PS wine. I think it is an Aalto. If it is a 2004, I mean, it could be very well a PS. Could be a PS 2003, for instance. But my guess would be Aalto 2004. Wow, 2001. I find it extremely young, extremely young. In fact, 2001 was a great year, but I'll tell you that one thing that worries me is that not only Aalto, but in general, all wineries, I might even say in the world, including top chateaus in Bordeaux, we are making wines now to satisfy the taster, the public, and the journalists at the time that they taste it. I mean, I'd love to have 100 points. How do I get 100 points? Well, I get 100 points if they're giving the moment the guy tastes, whether it's Parker, you, whoever. Obviously, if I make a wine that is horrible to taste, and in 20 years' time deserve 100, maybe no one tastes it then, or the bottles are gone. So for me, it's a problem. I would think we should make wines that would last longer than they last now. A great wine is a wine that is great when you start, but it's great 20 years after. And for me, and I'm talking about Aalto, of course, the rest of the winemakers can have their own views and maybe different to mine, of course. But for me, our wines are not evolving as well as I would like to last for 20 years. Let's not talk about 100 years or 50 years. That's for a Port is fine, or for a Sauternes, or for a Jerez. But I'm very, very pleasantly surprised. I thank you for bringing this to me, because I can see that blind tasting, which is the most humble possible way, I thought it was a 2004. Yeah? Okay. It was a great wine. I thought it was 2004, and it's 2001, which means that our wines maybe are evolving better than I thought when I tasted it. Obviously, it is corpulent. It is a great wine, and it's much, much younger than I expected at this moment. So, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.